of the 20 Welcome to track 6 of the 2021 Global Women's Economic Forum. My name is Tilottama Srinivasa, and I'm very excited to start our discussion for the day on this track, which is about impacting society through innovations in law and public policy. This panel has Dr. Nazrana Ahmed as the moderator, Sister Jessie Kurian, and Dr. Nadia Ratke, who haven't joined us yet. So I will start with, I'm really excited to welcome the Honorable Supreme Court Justice Aisha Shujune Muhammad, who is the judge of the Supreme Court of Maldives. Thank you for joining us, Your Honor. I'm also very thrilled to welcome Nirupama Kotruji, who is the Joint Secretary and Financial Advisor in the Ministry of Coal, the Ministry of Mines, as well as additional charge in the Ministry of Minority Affairs. Thank you very much for joining us today, ma'am. I think maybe I will, if it's all right with you, maybe I will give Dr. Ahmed a couple of minutes and see if she will join us. But in case she may be having some difficulty with the whole platform, so in which case then maybe I'll just start the discussion. So another minute or two before I start, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Perhaps Dr. Ahmed is in the lounge, the interactive lounge. If you can check, she had joined there. You can ask her to come over to this session.
Okay. If the host can maybe look at that, because I'll just I'll call them. I think I'll do that. That will be simplest. Yes, ma'am. So they are looking for her. So in the meanwhile, this is something that is, not talked about enough. The whole idea of innovation in this space, and because normally when you're talking about innovation, you're looking at engineering or other policy, not necessarily here. So maybe Honorable Aisha ji, if you could start by giving us some of your thoughts on this field. I know you were one of the first women to be nominated as judge of the Supreme Court of Maldives. And then you're also in the UN. So it's been a lot of firsts for you. So if you could tell us what you think of the idea.
I think it's oftentimes law is seen as something that is used to address certain issues or problems in society. It's not necessarily seen as a way of transforming how things are looked at necessarily. This is part of the things I will speak about today, actually, in more particular in relation to women. And one of the things I will is that, especially with regards to constitutional interpretation, there are so many forms of constitutional interpretation. What I really like about our current constitution and the chapter on fundamental rights and freedoms is that it requires a transformative approach to interpretation, in the sense that this is something that has actually come out of South Africa after the apartheid period, when the rights and were being interpreted. It's seen as a transformative in the sense that it's always the standards that are upheld in interpreting rights and freedoms, the international norms and standards that are upheld. And it's always changing because it's always being fine-tuned. And it's like, it's not a destination, it's like you're crossing a bridge all the time. So you're always perfecting that one aspect of any given right, say, for example. And through that, how we could impact potentially society is, I think, great.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I think Dr. Nazrana is now here, so I will actually let her take over. But before I do, just a quick introduction to her. Dr. Nazrana is an academic, an industrialist, and an advocate. And she's also the chairperson of Minority Women Empowerment in Assam. And she's very kindly agreed to moderate this session. So thank you for joining us, ma'am. And I invite you to take over the session.
Good morning, everyone. And Tiloktoma, thank you for your kind words of welcome. I had just heard briefly, Madam Judge from the Maldives. And good morning, Madam Nirupama. It is wonderful. And I think it is just the four of us in this session. And that I think we will be joined by other people in the other tracks. And of course, this session is being recorded, so it will be heard by the others. Our topic today is impacting society through innovations in law and public policy. And whenever we speak about public policy, as you know, we are a 75-year-old democracy. And when we say 75 years old democracy, but the ancient civilization of India is centuries old. It goes back to the origin of humankind, and the basis of our civilized society from the ancient Indian civilization to today is based on the concept of justice and ethical balance between public society and individual rights, between the state and the citizen. And of course, this also echoes the dialogues of Plato, where Plato in his dialogues of Plato, where he said that every citizen should be governed by reason, and wisdom in rulers, temperance in common citizens is critical for achieving a public policy that not only balances the greater common good, but also the individual identity, the individual dignity, because at the heart is the dignity of the individual citizen. Lord Denning had said that an ordinary citizen can enforce a public law if he has a private right. So there is a dual correlation. There is a dual correlation between rights and duties. And I believe that public policy, when it evolves as an organic medium, it's an organic sphere, it keeps evolving, it keeps pushing the envelope to encompass the aspirations of the ordinary citizen. And now I invite Madam Aisha Suzan Ahmed, Judge, Supreme Court of Maldives, for her deliberations.
Thank you very much. Distinguished participants, Assalamu alaikum. Allow me to start by congratulating the Women's Economic Forum for the organization of this Global Digital Annual Women's Economic Forum 2021. It's an honor and a privilege for me to speak here today. I can remember clearly the reactions I received when I started working on issues related to women close to 3 decades ago. It was, of course, varied, but primarily centered around the belief that men and women are different, physiologically and otherwise, and therefore the efforts we were making in advocating for equality were futile. I was often told that 5 fingers of one's hand are not the same and that they're not equal. As you would expect in such a situation, gender stereotyping was common, and many believed that it was a role for the women to stay at home and care for the children. Ironically, this was also true even when there was a need for women to earn an income to support the family, and that was acknowledged. Of course, we undertook numerous campaigns to empower women and encourage them to be more independent, as were those to encourage women into public life and decision-making. State policy has, through the years, encouraged increased participation of women, and though there have been numerous challenges and limitations, laws were also put in place to facilitate better equality in opportunities and outcomes. The most prominent of these changes have been to the Constitution of Maldives, which in 2008 entrenched almost the entirety of the spectrum of rights found in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Not only are these rights subject to overarching principles of equality and non-discrimination, but the Constitution categorically recognizes affirmative action. I find the chapter on fundamental rights and freedoms rather positive, and perhaps may even be called revolutionary for the fact that the rights therein have to be interpreted and applied by the courts in a non-destructive manner that promotes the values that underlie an open democratic society based on human dignity, equality, and freedom, and in consideration of international treaties to which Maldives is party. This transformative approach has provided the tools to interpretation and application that we have lacked for a very long time, and allows judges to use international law standards in interpreting the scope of rights and freedoms. While it is acknowledged that substantial efforts are required to achieve both de jure and de facto equality, laws such as the Gender Equality Act, the Employment Act, the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, and the Sexual Offences Act have been of immense importance in providing a legal framework that would address some of the many issues faced by women, both in private and public sphere. The question then arises whether and how equality and protections afforded by the law translates into the lived realities of our people. Looking at figures, the Household Income and Expenditure Survey, which I will refer to as HAIS from here on out, the one done in 2002-2003, showed that the economically active population was 43% overall, with women being just over 23% of that total. In contrast, in 2019, the HAIS survey revealed that the overall figure for the economically active population has jumped to just over 60%, with women constituting close to 47% of the total. Moreover, in the informal sector, the number of women exceed men by 8%. This is an improvement, and coupled with the fact that the Right Side of Life survey done in 2000 showed that 94% of respondents listed the following rights, that is the right to women to exercise and enjoy all human rights on the basis of equality, and the right to work and to just, favorable and fair conditions of work, and the right to equal pay for equal work without discrimination, was marked as either most important or somewhat important by 94% of the respondents. These are few examples, and while these are great strides, a more holistic approach needs to be adopted to ensure that women are indeed at par with men. This is evident from the positions taken by respondents in the Right Side of Life survey 2000 in respect to family life, where a significant proportion of the population, both men and women, consider that women have a subordinate role in a marriage, and that more women than men express that there are reasons for a husband to hit his wife. Nonetheless, the survey also showed that there is strong support, again, amongst both men and men, for intervention outside of the family, where there is domestic violence and abuse, and that the large percentage of people are aware that domestic violence is criminalized and know how to seek protection. This means that while it can be reasonably assumed that the rollout of the laws and information provided thereafter have reached its target population, there are critical gaps in how women are viewed. We can have legal protections, be aware of them, and know how to seek recourse, but without a holistic approach, without the promotion of tolerance, mutual respect, and empathy, and without paying attention to social conditioning within our families, society, and most importantly, in the education system, laws and policies, while necessary and helpful, do not do enough to bring about real and meaningful social change, and with it, economic progress. Shift in law and policy to behavioral change and address the social dimensions that impede and facilitate everyone, including we will not be able to reach our full potential. Yes, the fingers in our hands are exactly the point. Hand needs all its 5 fingers, the 5 different, to function effectively, to operate at its optimal. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Aisha. Your mention about the survey, that household survey. Recently, also our survey in India, survey data on National Family Household Survey was released, and the impact of women in the economic sphere, and more importantly, the use of hygiene products by women and how it impacted their economic ability to be in the workplace was a key factor that drew our attention, and especially our attention as we are doing these discussions on minority women empowerment in the state of Assam, and public discussions in various places, and the lack of access to sanitary hygiene products led to many a school dropout, and led to a huge number of women dropping out of the workplace altogether because of this aspect. And that was clearly brought out in that National Family Household Survey, and that has a similar echo in the survey that you mentioned, Madam. And yes, of course, that is just one question that I would like to ask after Madam Nirupama gives her opening remarks, is what are the points of conflict that the Maldivian constitution had while adopting the international covenants on rights and economic rights. I now welcome Madam Nirupama for her opening remarks. Welcome, Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Nazrana. And I'm grateful to Justice Aisha for having set the ball rolling at the very beginning by mentioning the Constitution, because as we're all aware, the Constitution is a broad framework from which public policy flows, and then come the laws. So in India, that's how we work it out. I mean, we are all conscious of this fact. And I can say without hesitation, from around 29 years of experience in public service now, that all over the world, the objective of policymakers is to try to do what the session is all about, that is impacting society through innovations in law and public policy. So I just want to share some examples of how I have been involved in shaping public policy in around my last 9 to 10 years, where I was purely a policy maker in the central government on deputation in departments other than my parent department, which is the revenue department. As you mentioned, Justice Aisha, sometimes the law has to step in, for example, where it's a broad overarching issue such as sexual harassment at the workplace. So we did have the law which has flown from the Vishaka guidelines of our Honorable Supreme Court in 2013. And in fact, yesterday we had the anniversary of this law coming into effect, 9th December. So we had a program also about it to sensitize people at the workplace. But we have a long way to go in all over the world. I mean, it is a similar situation. So of course, we are looking today from a gender perspective. So I'd like to talk about some of the policies which impact women's lives. For instance, so I can take about 2 or 3 sectors. One is the corporate sector, where I was posted as director, and also in the film sector, in information and broadcasting, culture, where I have been joint secretary, and finally also the mining sector, which I am looking after at present. So starting with the corporate sector in 2010, in fact, we had worked on evolving the national voluntary guidelines for business, which are aligned with our Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations 2030. And the very broad, which takes completely of called the National Voluntary Guidelines on Social, Environment and Economic Responsibility of Business. So they look at complete ethics, accountability, and promoting well-beings of all employees, promoting gender equality, inclusive growth, community development. So that really, takes care of all the women working in any of the sectors of the economy. It's a very, very broad principle, and we were fortunate that Securities Exchange Board of India incorporated this, and there's a mandatory filing required for all listed companies where they have to file a business responsibility report annually. So it has really improved awareness of companies towards their employees, including women, which is very critical. In 2011, these guidelines have been passed. Secondly, coming to the media and entertainment industry. Now, mostly the government's role, even in corporate sector and in media, has been a facilitator or an enabler. So you don't really control the sector because it's been growing by itself as broadcasting, print, TV, film. These are very, by definition, they are more inclusive. Women's participation is quite good in the creative and cultural sector. Fortunately, worldwide, it's more than 25% because it is the nature of the sector is such that women do participate in larger numbers. However, where the content is concerned, government never interferes. And we do find, although, again, this is a worldwide feature, if you try to judge by something called a Bechdel test, which was designed for, women in fiction and literature, which says that every piece of fiction must feature at least 2 women or more. They must talk to each other, and the conversation must concern something other than men. So we found when we did surveys and, we made reports that all over the world, whether it's a Hollywood blockbuster or an Indian film or a film or a Korean film or a Japanese, they all, most of them would fail this test. But content is something which evolves as society evolves. We can't step in and say, don't make this. However, when required, the law must kick in and legislate. So I'll share one example. There was a makeup artist by the name of Charuk Rana. This is a landmark case. 2013, what happened is she applied for membership of this association in Maharashtra where she was working, and she was denied a card. So she and about 8 other women approached the Honorable Supreme Court. I was there. We collected information from all the associations, and to our surprise, they said that no, we don't have any rule barring women, but then they won't issue cards to women. So we went to Honorable Supreme Court, and Honorable Supreme Court struck down this. They said this ban, whether formal or informal, on keeping women out of these associations must go. And this judgment came in 2014. So wherever required, the law has to step in, because as I said, the government is a facilitator. It cannot always force somebody to do something. When it is illegal, yes, the Labor Ministry also supported us. Obviously, they said a ban is incorrect, it's unethical, and now it is also illegal, which is good, which really helps us. Similarly, you might have heard about women in armed forces. They've been fighting a battle. Earlier, they were forced to be short service commission officers. Again, Honorable Supreme Court has stepped in. It is said these women must be given the same terms of employment, although this is not a sector I have been looking at, but I was following it closely and I was very happy with the recent developments. finally, I don't want to take too much time, but I want to share about the mining sector because Honorable Justice Aisha did mention stereotyping, and mining is one sector which was traditionally seen as completely male dominated. Nobody would think a woman would ever go and work in a mine. And therefore, what was happening was, although there were courses for mining engineering in institutes such as the Institute of Mining in Dhanbad, which is in the heart of the coal area, women were not taking up these courses because there were no prospects for them to work. They were allowed to work only in the, from sunrise to sunset, if at all. So again, this law has come, the amendment has come in the Mines and Minerals Regulation and Development Act in 2 years back, which is in March 2019. The amendment now says that women are allowed to work in underground mines. They are allowed to work in open cast mines, even in night shifts. And where underground mines are concerned, they can also work in night shifts in technical, supervisory, or managerial roles. So I have been so happy. I have myself met some of our girls who have taken this job. I have met girls who are the first underground mine, metal mine driver of a vehicle. I've gone underground with them, and it's a very exciting time for women in mining because they're really breaking the glass ceiling everywhere and, conquering new bastions. So I would just like to end by saying that mostly the government likes to play the role of a facilitator and an enabler, but where required, we do fight for trying to bring gender equality through changes in the law and by drafting public policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Nirupama. That was an all-encompassing view from the government, where the government is handholding the impact or guiding women to uncharted areas. And I use the word guide not as a guardian, but I use the word guide as a beacon, because here the government, by making certain minor changes in the law, like in the mining sector, has become a beacon, a guiding light for women to go into uncharted areas where she is able to identify herself not in her gendered capacity, but as an individual. And that, I believe, is a public policy that positively impacts and an innovation in law. And here again, I recall our fundamental duties, where it says that for a citizen, the spirit of inquiry and reform. So not just inquiry, the citizen inquires, and through that inquiry reforms the existing public policy for an enabling law. I now invite Madam Jessie Kurian for her opening remarks.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
You are on mute.
Hello, yes, now I'm
Yes.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, yes. So the topic I'm given is impacting society through innovations in law and public policy. However, I cannot see any one of you. Yes, so first, hi to everyone. Namaskar from the Supreme Court of India. So happy to be part of this great venture on Human Rights Day. I wish all the empowered women here happy human rights. And impacting society through innovation in law. First of all, we have to see what is law. Then what is innovation? What is public policy? So first one, law. Law demands 3 mandatory requirements. That is, law has been defined as the body of rules of conduct for action that has been prescribed by the controlling authority and has a legal binding force. Also, law must be followed and obeyed by all the citizens. Failing to do this will result in legal consequences of law. That means three mandatory conditions. One is it should be passed by a controlling authority. Second, it must have legal binding force. Third, that should be obeyed. Otherwise, there will be a legal consequence, means imposing penalty. Now, what is the purpose of law? We have so many laws, different laws in different countries. We are from different countries here. Law varies. How it varies? According to the needs of the society, needs of the people. So there are many laws. We have law relating to children, property laws, marriage laws, women-related laws, human rights laws, etc. It varies from state to state, perhaps, and definitely from country to country. But the main purpose is maintaining order, establishing standards, protecting liberties, and resolving disputes. Here comes the important point that protecting liberties, is it only to protect liberties of certain categories of people in this country, in every country, or it is to protect the liberties of every person in the state or in the country? That is very important. Now, once it was said, India is not for women. That much of atrocities are taking place against women, despite all these laws in this country. And today is Human Rights Day. Still, then let us see, what do we mean by innovation then? Innovation is a symbol, it's a simple idea, something new, a method, device, novelty, introduction of something which you have not seen before, heard before, we say new. Flood of Android mobiles and technology that we are using for last 2 years, it's an innovation due to COVID-19. Great innovation in human history. Now, when we speak about the innovations in law, starting with courtroom innovations, that in 63 BC, we had shorthand. I'm just speaking about what is the development in the courtroom technical ones. Then we come to law. Thereafter, in 1913, we have stenotype. Then now we have fingerprint, DNA test. What I'm saying is the development, innovations. Why? Because all these are based on the people's need. Now coming to laws, we have human rights laws. Why human rights laws were introduced? The United Nations or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an international document adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on this day, 10th December 1948, because after the Second World War, everyone understood there must be a common law to be followed by the universe for better maintenance, better living, better protection of liberties of everyone. Now the question is whether it is implemented in its true spirit or not. Actually, this declaration recognizes all human beings as being born free and equal in dignity and rights. Now I must tell you, we are women. This is a women's organization. You know, first in the United Nations Declaration, it was written, all men are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And it's an intervention from India, a woman's intervention, that now it is said all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Well, therefore, every person should recognize and uphold human dignity of every person. Now again, law evolved from the circumstances. We have United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child, because children were the victims of war, hatred. They were not provided with conducive atmosphere of growth, even today. So that is there. That was in 1989. Then came, of course, the landmark for women, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. It's an international legal instrument that requires countries to eliminate discrimination against women. Now, when we speak about laws, whether our laws are helping to remove discrimination against women in every country. This is a main question today. Now, in India, you see, we have marriage laws. This is also out of circumstances. The need of the people. Every law takes roots from the need of the society, need of the people. And this should meet the need of the people equally. That's what is law. We have laws to protect women from sexual harassment at the workplace. Actually, there was no law to effect this effect. And the Supreme Court laid down certain guidelines earlier in Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. But now there is a law in this country. Why? Because sexual harassment is taking place. Now, after Nirbhaya incident in 2012, criminal law was amended. New innovation, that is. So now we have Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013. So innovation. And section 497 was struck down by Supreme Court of IPC. That is adultery. All of us know, I am speaking from Indian context, adultery. A woman having sexual intercourse with a man, a man having sexual intercourse with a woman who is the wife of another man without his permission. Just imagine, that means with his permission, she could do or she can do. We never thought of it. Till recently, when someone filed a case, you just imagine. So, Supreme Court said, woman is not the chattel. She's not a chattel. She's not the property of the husband. Husband is not the owner of the woman. Just imagine. Equality is established. We never thought of how many years of independence, no woman thought of it. So innovation should begin with the women, I say. We must think, take IPC, take the laws of our nations wherever we are, the locality, municipality, study. Then we must challenge. And definitely many men challenge more than women. But recently in Supreme Court, of course, there are so many laws challenged by women. Now, what happens sometimes the judgments pass, you know that. Recent judgments from Mumbai High Court in POCSO, that is touching the breast of a woman or a child unrobed is not an offense under POCSO. Just imagine what's the judgment. What's the attitude of that judge? And then definitely it is set aside by the Supreme Court. Namaskar and salute to judiciary, the apex court of India. And then we have another. In 2020, Madhya Pradesh High Court said, granted bail to the accused rapist, stating or with the mandatory condition to tie Rakhi on the victim or on the hand of the victim on Rakhi festival. That was a condition laid down by the court, High Court, for granting bail. Definitely we challenged it. Women challenged it in the Supreme Court and it's also set aside. Now Guwahati High Court granted bail to a student who is a major in rape case, stating that the victim is from other state. Both are studying in same college. Both are, friends, and they are youngsters. Just imagine. So such judgments also will affect growth of discrimination in this country and we will not get justice. Then came Dowry Prohibition Act because dowry harassment is going on. Then right to vote came because of Sarojini Naidu for Indian women, I am saying. So friends, what I want to say is So innovation should be based on people's needs. Innovation should be to meet the needs of the people in particular place or state or country. Now, what I say is, how we can impact. I want to speak to my women who are watching me in a special way, and men perhaps, they are also justice loving. There are so many men like justice loving in this country, I know that. They are all behind us. How we can impact? Now, educate the masses through legal literacy. I believe that everyone should be protected from exploitation. Unless one knows the law of the land wherever, cannot protect or claim the rights. So I have an NGO, Citizens Rights Trust. The main objective is to teach the people. We are conducting a lot of programs, national and international, promotion of human rights and rights of women. To the judiciary, we are addressing judges, lawyers, police force. Law should be taught. So everyone should today on this Human Rights Day pledge that we will teach maximum citizens of law. Then we educate the citizens through legal literacy programs and empower them to protect themselves from corruption and exploitation. One, raise questions on corruption and injustice wherever we are, any establishment. Of course, it's easy to preach like this, I am sure, but when you do it, you have to face a lot of consequences. When laws are passed that will affect the citizens or a category of citizens negatively, we have to raise our voice. Now, in India, what happened? 3 farm laws were not inconsistent with Indian Constitution, and recently they are repealed by the Prime Minister, means the Parliament. That's why that togetherness and oneness of farmers in India showed the sovereignty of our nation. Sovereignty lies with the people of India, not the president, not the prime minister, not the parliamentarians. It's the people. It's a landmark strike which people held in this country. So innovation should be to meet the needs of the people. Then, friends, for impacting society, we should write books and booklets and tactics and articles and express through all these literature. Also, have press meet, TV channels. Women should come forward expressing ourselves. I want so many women to write books. I find many, but not more. Must come. I am so glad on this 26th November is called Law Day and Constitution Day of this country. That day, Chief Justice of India honored me for writing a book on women laws and judicial pronouncements. The book is all the laws relating to women in India and also landmark judgments passed by Supreme Court and High Courts on each law. So I'm so happy. All of us must come forward to educate. Friends, in conclusion, women should first realize that we are not inferiors but equals. We should be convinced of our capabilities and potentialities and develop an attitude of I can and I will. I conclude with this quote. You can break down a woman temporarily, but a real woman always will pick up the pieces, rebuild herself, and come back stronger than ever. The success of every woman should be the inspiration to another. We should raise each other up. That's what Serena Williams says. Next, create your own style. Let it be unique for yourself and yet identifiable for others. Yes, I conclude. You are brave than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and twice as beautiful as you are ever imagined. Friends, let us work together to bring justice to the doorsteps of every citizen wherever we are, and to work for the empowerment of women and equality. I wish Dr. Just 1 second. Sujitra and all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to address you, and all of you. Namaskar and thanks. Jai Hind, Jai Justice. God bless.
Thank you, Madam Kurian. Your words recalled what APJ Abdul Kalam, former president of India, said, "I have wings and I can fly." And I am sure when we remove ignorance in law, because juricia ignorantia non excusat, ignorance of law is not excuse, is no excuse. And I am sure the awareness that your organization is developing, the awareness among citizens, will go a long way in securing the rights of women. I now address a question to Madam Justice Aisha. Madam, this is regarding the conflict and also the constraints and convergence of the Maldives Constitution in incorporating the international covenants on rights, and especially economic rights for women. Madam.
I'm not sure whether you are aware of our history, but then this is
we are a Commonwealth. We are a common Commonwealth nation, madam.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
One thing I always tell my class, you know, that when we study Indian law of evidence, and if you go to practice in the Maldives, you will have the same law of evidence. It'll simply be called the Maldivian law of evidence. We have the same in law of evidence, 1872. Okay. Colonial legacy, if you may. Yes. Yes, madam.
The more recent history in terms of maybe around the 2000s or late 90s, perhaps, when Maldives started to speak more about democracy. We've had, since independence, we've had elected officials in government, but then the more open democracy, that is something we were advocating for in the Maldives. And because a lot of rights back in the day, because we had a new constitution in 98 as well, and the current one in 2008, so that one lasted 10 years. But what was different about this current constitution is, unlike the earlier ones, this recognizes the primacy or the supremacy of the constitution itself, and it doesn't subject the constitution to executive order or anything else. The constitution is supreme, and it can only be expanded, limited, or otherwise, or within the framework. It can only be, additions can only be made by statute, which wasn't the case before. And with regards to rights, earlier it was, you have the right to vote, say right to something, but that is subject to any limitations that were placed by the executive. So although technically we would have rights, and because the executive orders were also deemed law as defined in the constitution at that time, there were lots of limitations. So there were, in the Maldivian scale, there were some protests, and it's not as massive as yours, but then there were some protests, and political parties were allowed for the first time, and all these things. And with that came the need for a new constitution and to entrench rights and freedoms, because we have been at the mercy of whoever is in power at any given time. So that one thing, I suppose, that was sought was that this should not be at the hands of any one or group of people. So the Constitutional Assembly was, we have a separate Constitutional Assembly that had to be, as per the previous constitution, that had to be assembled to make the constitution and or draft the constitution. So one of the things that was, how do I put it? It was a very delicate matter. Let's put it that way. And
do you
there
think,
was a-
do you think there was some impact of the climate change that is affecting primarily island nation into being more conscious of the citizen becoming more conscious of their rights?
Potentially, yes, because that was also part of the debate. That was also part of the debate, but most of it was around economic rights, civic rights. Yeah, because until, say, for example, 2008, with the current constitution, with regards to women, one of the criteria for, say, for example, becoming president was being a male. So
that's
yeah, so we removed that.
that's
So
a monument. That's a monumental change, and yes, congratulations.
So among other things, okay.
Yes.
Say for example, I'm not saying that women will become presidents, but why not?
But why not have the choice?
Exactly, but why not have the choice? If somebody were interested, capable, and able to do it, why not? So and for us women, it has been a slow change in terms, the first females in the judiciary came in when we were actually appointed. That was in 2007.
Oh,
yes. So that was the first time women were actually sitting on the bench. And so we've had a long, slow struggle, but then we're finally, hopefully, of course, a lot of things need to be done, but now that we have this fundamental rights and freedoms entrenched in the constitution, that makes it that much more easier, especially because, like I said,
it's security. It is giving a sense of security for women to have an aspiration to be a judge or to be a president.
Yes. Among other things.
Among other things.
Yes. So, and the fact that I really like the fact that affirmative action is recognized and and specifically stated that it shall not deem discrimination if anybody else is
just a question, Madam Nirupama and Madam Judge Aisha, is that what about the fact that a women's domestic work, household work, is not quantified, and because it's not quantified and economically not verifiable in both our countries, has it led to more discrimination and abuse against women? Women residing in a common household in the domestic sphere, and women also elsewhere. And it may be a wife, a sister, an aunt. What are your views?
Dr. Nazrana, I think if I remember correctly, not many countries have quantified. In fact, UK was the first, in fact, to include domestic work in their GDP, the gross domestic product. But most countries haven't. But I think we are also moving towards progressive budgeting. We do have something called gender budgeting, which has become compulsory from this budget. And all the ministries have been asked to identify policies where women are directly beneficiaries, even if they're not 100%, but 30%. So believe me, that change is coming. But yes, where domestic work is concerned, it is a concern, especially over the period of pandemic. If you remember, last 1.5 years, more women who have been working outside the house have been putting in longer hours doing domestic work as well, which is doubly exhausting for a woman. And also when we talk about empowering women, you have to do it right from the schooling stage. A young girl has to put in so many more hours in chores that we had a course on gender studies by one of the professors of Delhi universities, and she was telling us that these poor girls are exhausted by the time they come to school and college, because they've already done about 4 hours of domestic work, killing work right in the morning, from collecting water to doing the dishes to making food for everybody, including their brother, who's usually the more pampered child, and not getting enough food. So this discrimination has to be tackled at a social level as well. Parents have to, tell their children and their daughters that please, I mean, they have to focus on educating and giving them the proper nourishment right from a young age. If you don't even feed your daughter properly as compared to her brother, how is she going to go to school and college and, rise up and get a job and, achieve whatever her purpose in life is? How is she going to fulfill it? So it's a major social challenge as well. And only government pushing it through law is not enough. It really needs a massive change, transformation of our society. We can only bring small, innovative changes through law, which are also very important, I must say. Yes.
Yes, yes, that is true. Each incremental change is a step forward. And thank you, Madam Judge Aisha and Madam Nirupama and Madam Jessie Kurian and Madam Tilottama for anchoring it initially. I think there was a wonderful exchange of views and a perspective that was refreshing, and a perspective that not only brought about how we are impacting society through innovation, but the importance of innovation in moving forward public policy, in pushing the organic growth, especially in securing the rights of women. Thank you very much.
Can I just make a concluding remark, please?
Yes.
Because yesterday was the anniversary of the sexual harassment
guidelines.
We were all discussing, yes, we were discussing, and there was a point I made, which I always make, is that unless women come in leadership positions, we will not be able to push up the rest of women. I find it's a vicious cycle, whether you call it a vicious cycle or a good cycle, but more women coming into the workforce and coming up really helps to uplift other women. And we have such excellent world leaders like Angela Merkel, who just retired yesterday. When the whole of European Union was against it, she was the one who was so sympathetic towards refugees, and the way she rose to the challenge and educated them and gave them jobs. I mean, it's a remarkable role model for young girls to follow. Be a no-nonsense person like Margaret Thatcher was. She used to famously say, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. And we had our own Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ji. All of them have been such remarkable role leaders for us. So I wish more girls would look up to women leaders who are strong, decisive, and also remember, all of us have to remember as leaders in our field to also take all the women up along, especially when it comes to things like sexual harassment at the workplace. Believe me, it's really nice for the younger women who are in the staff, who are our subordinates, to know that there's somebody who's willing to listen and to help you, to lend a sympathetic ear. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, role models have a positive impact because they show the aspiration that is possible, the aspiration, and that is what Kamala Harris said, that it is because young girls can see me here and they can aspire to be here or go beyond that. Why is that a horizon? It can be a new horizon. And I am sure it is through discussions like this that public policy can evolve and newer horizons can be created. Thank you so much, Madam Aisha, Madam Nirupama, Madam Tilottama, for your words and expressing yourself, your ideas and sharing your ideas. That I'm sure will be a beacon for the others to come. And thank you so much for making it a success. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nazrana. Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Tilottama.
Thank you for joining us. One final thing, I think the Global Women Economic Forum would be conferring on each of the three of you here the award of Exceptional Leader of Excellence. Since this is digital, the award will also, come to you by email in about a fortnight. Thank you so much for this very interesting and enlightening discussion. And yeah, we're really honored to have all of you here.
Thank you. Thank you.